Hello, and welcome. I'm Jenna Canfield-Gonzalez, and I'm your host for The Resilient Parent. And we're talking about turning tragedies into triumphs and creating thriving family lives, which is something that we all strive for. And hello, I'm so excited to welcome Rick Concoff.
Hello.
Hi, Rick.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us and giving your special, perspective and expertise on this subject. And I really appreciate you being here. I've been really excited to have this interview because I feel like this whole series has not touched upon the subject of humor and how important laughing and having fun can be for this whole, journey of resilience. So can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and just kind of what brought you to where you are?
Right. So thank you. So I've been working with kids in camp and teaching environments for, I want to say 40 years, a good 40 years. It's pretty much what I've always done. I've done it in a context as a music teacher. I've done it in the context of working in a synagogue and doing Jewish, I would say religious, but progressive religious education. And also I have, in the last 10 years or so, begun doing a lot of work with what I would call coaching parents, kids, specifically teens and preteens. However, I do have a saying that raising a teenager starts at birth. So anybody essentially who has a child is eligible and a good candidate for a parenting of teen classes. And I was just actually thinking today about this long adolescence and how much longer it's going these days. I have a friend and we were talking about, 40 is the new 50 and 50 is the new 60. And we were out to breakfast with his son who's 30, about 35, said, yeah, and 30 is the new 10. What is 30 is the new 10? Basically means that it's getting older and older in age, in which young adults are attached to their parents and dependent on their parents. And likewise, I hate to say it, but in a lot of ways, 10 is the new 30, because we tend to overindulge our 10-year-olds and treat them like adults and expect them to understand and know things that they can't possibly know. So we've got a lot of things switched around, and it ends up being humorous. And sometimes in the middle of an argument with a child, you have to start laughing. And of course, that's the worst thing you can do in certain cases, because the child is fully serious, and you're laughing and they think you're laughing at them, but you're really not laughing at them. You're laughing at the irony and the satire of the situation. This, sort of parent-child relationship of all ages, of all times, has been this strife.
I love that. Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like kids are starting their adolescence at a younger age. I mean, even physically, because of all these hormones that people, and then definitely lasting longer. People are into their 20s, still living at home. Why should we move out? It makes more sense economically, but then it does seem like it stunts your growth. And that does tie into what we're talking about, resilience, because, when you hit those struggles, like you go off to college and things are hard, but you figure it out. How do you get your first PG&E bill? How do you hook up all your stuff, right? If you don't ever have to do that and suddenly you want to get married, it's like, what do you have to offer, right? So how do we help instill a sense of resilience and like problem solving wisdom for our teens and as they grow up into adults? It's so important.
Thank you. I was just doing a little study for a talk that I have coming up about a brief history of adolescence. And actually the word adolescence came from a Latin root in the 15th century, which meant to grow up. It didn't really come into full fruition until after the Industrial Revolution in America, when suddenly instead of two groups, you had a child and an adult. After the Industrial Revolution with the new child labor laws, you suddenly had a child and then a big period in between child and adult. And that's when adolescence really came into being as not only a stage, but as a big problem. Because there is the rearing back for holding, for attachment, for caring, for nurturing, and there is the jumping forward for freedom and for independence. And those things seem to waver from moment to moment. And so one of the things that I think, and this was actually brought to me at a dinner of some family friends, a young man who's in 11th grade, I was asking him how his classes are at school, and he said, yeah, you know, pretty boring. And I said, this is an A student. What percentage of your classes that you're taking at school have no meaning to you? And he said about 90%. And I said, okay, so let's just play for a minute. If I was to ask you to invent a class, what class would you invent? And he said, the class I would invent is how to be an adult.
Yeah.
And I actually have a book called How to Be an Adult, which I enjoy giving to people, but it usually insults them when I give it to them. But it's a fabulous little book. It's a manual. And to be an adult, I said, so what do you mean? He said, I want to know how to open a bank account, how to write a check, how to mail a letter. I had a group of kids that I had write gratitude letters last Thanksgiving to people who were special in their life as an exercise. And one of the little girls came up to me and said, so can you get this to my grandma? And I said, no, you have to mail it to your grandma. Well, okay, I know how, I have an envelope and I have it addressed, but how do you get a stamp? You know, so these kids don't even know, you know, basic life skills. So I actually plan to offer some how to be an adult seminars, and also how to get a loan, and what is credit, and what is retirement, and what is an IRA. You know, how to buy food, how to shop, you know, creatively. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a straight out curriculum that we're not doing. And I'm going to add one more thing, and that is when I was teaching at a Waldorf school in 12th grade, I did offer a section on how to be a parent. Because really, if you teach teenagers how to be a parent, you're also teaching them how to be an adult.
Yeah, well, hopefully that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, right.
A little humor for you. I mean, I just say this tongue in cheek, but when you said that, how to be an adult book, I thought, oh, I think I need a copy of that for my husband. You know,
right. Totally. No, and there is. It's interesting because there is this fad. I do parenting classes, and I often get more moms than dads to come to the classes. Which, by the way, just taking a parenting class, just saying to your kid, we'll be back in 2 hours, we're going to a parenting class, is a huge statement of support for them. They like that. They go, finally, you're going to a parenting class. Learn something. But then when you come home with new ideas, it's a little different. And the moms tend to be, you know, in this day, I actually have a book I'm working on called Angry Sons and Exhausted Moms, because the mom has turned around now to be the major authority figure in the family. If you ask any group of children, I don't care, 10 kids who come to your house to a birthday party or a class, and you say, let's take a poll, how many houses in your houses is the woman the major figure, the authority figure, how many the man? You'll get 80 to 90% the woman is the authority figure. And then you have these husbands or these men who are kind of like, and I mean, when I was younger, I used to do this to say, well, I kind of feel like a kid myself. Okay, this is a big problem. We are not big kids.
Right.
We are adults, and they don't want to see us as big kids.
Right. We're not meant to be friends with them. I mean, it's great to have fun and to enjoy each other, but they really do need to see us as being the leader, the guide.
And I think also there's a true absence of what I would call vertical relationships for children. Because that, especially with media and with all their ways of communicating, many of their relationships are horizontal in that they are with their friends. Their friends become their attachments. And there aren't as many vertical relationships where you look up at a mom, look up at a dad. I was asking a group of kids the other day about, you know, certain things. If you said this to your parents, you said that to your parents, and how when I was a kid, you know, if you said, even mumbled it, you know, your parents said something to you and you were like, as you're walking your room, you said, and your dad would go, what'd you say? And you go, oh, nothing, you know, your face. And there are some parents who still won't tolerate that.
Well, it's called sass. No, don't give me no sass. No,
right, exactly.
That reminds me of a book I have, and I need to read it. And the author is I can't remember the name of the author right now, but it's called Hold On to Your Kids, and it's all about that exact thing.
I know that book.
Yeah, about just that the peer relationship is really the main attachment, and that's a huge issue for discipline. And that brings me to my next, you know, question for you, which is, we were talking about how, you know, you'd said there's there's this understanding now, mostly, that we don't do corporal punishment. People aren't really spanking their kids as much, and we're not hitting them with belts, things like that.
Right.
So then it comes up, okay, what do we do? How do we handle these angry, sons or daughters when they really are acting out? And, how do we respond in a way that's not just kind of throwing our hands up, but at the same time is not intimidating and oppressing either?
Right. And I think a lot of it is, so number one, consequences that make sense.
Okay.
You break a window, you pay for the window.
Yeah.
You have a fit and throw something down on the floor, you pay to have that replaced. I think those are consequential. It's just that when a child is mouthing off or being disrespectful, and you say, okay, go to your room, there's no real connection between, like, going to your room is supposed to be your sanctuary. And it is your sanctuary. So usually nowadays you say, go to your room. The kid's far out. I'll go to my room and play with my toys, and, I'll just hang out, or I'll make some noise in there or whatever. I think that and that book is an excellent book. I think every parent should read. Hold On to Your Kids. It's by, I'm also blanking out on they're two Canadian. It's a doctor and a psychologist. Gabor Mate and Neufeld, a guy named Neufeld. And they are amazing in their approach. And basically what they say is that the only thing that really works is attachment. In growing up, our children are attached to us. They don't realize that. And sometimes you can say to a 10 or 11-year-old, and I've tried this before, to say, look, if your dad and I weren't doing what we're doing in the world, being responsible, taking care of you, earning money, paying bills, you guys would be living in a refrigerator box under a freeway. You actually don't have the wherewithal to support yourselves. And so we are attached, and we do matter. And sort of in the scale of what I would call motivation, what you're talking about, corporal punishment. So that's at the fear level. And then bribery is next at the giving, at the receiving, or the giving level, sort of incentives. And the third level in a lot of paradigms of motivation is called significant other. And that means you'll actually do it for your mom because she's your mom, or you'll do it for your dad because he's your dad. And that doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with it. And I want to remind me if I don't say it this time, but I want to talk about agreements and understandings and the difference. Anyway, so basically, attachment parenting. So when you hit a point where your child begins to detach from you, if there are no vertical attachments in place, then they will horizontally attach to their peers, and their peers will become their parents. And they'll be on their cell phone texting at 3 a.m. saying, my dad's this and my mom's that, and agreeing with each other. Mm-hmm. So one of the most paramount important things to do is to put rich personalities and beings into the places, who teaches your kid the guitar. It's important who that is and what he represents or she represents. Who teaches your kid, who tutors your kid, who's in charge of the dance troupe, who's in charge of the play. If those people are not upstanding, and if they're just groovy, hey, whatever goes is cool, your parents suck, those aren't the people you want with your kids.
I love that. That's so profound. And I definitely agree with that. And I mean, because what you're saying is that you don't have to be everything for your child, but you do need to be orchestrating these relationships in a really, conscious way, right?
You actually need me, is what you say to your children.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one quick example. I had a parent come to me for coaching, and which is a little different than counseling because it's not clinical, and I don't do clinical. I have a master's, but it's in community work and social work. Anyway, my son won't brush his teeth. He's in 6th grade. He just won't brush his teeth. And it's a struggle, a battle where, I say the 3 things to never do with your kids is argue and negotiate and tell them they hurt your feelings, because none of those really ever work. So with the toothbrush, I said, okay, so go home and announce your 6th grade son, hey, honey, your dad and I have decided that you don't have to brush your teeth anymore. We're done. And it's up to you. However, your bank account, which currently has some of your future school money, your gifts from relatives, whatever money you have will now be spent as you pay your own dental bills.
Yes.
So you have toothache or whatever, you'll just pay your own dental bills, and it's fine. We don't need to do that anymore. So go for it. As we say in Yiddish, sei gesund, be well. You go do that. If that's how you want to live your life, go do that. And so the kid said to him when she took that home, he said, oh, but I don't want to do that. I want you guys to, and she goes, well, it's too late, actually. We're turning it over to you. Well, I don't want to pay my own dental bills. Well, here's how it works. For a month, you demonstrate to your dad and I that you have responsibly and thoroughly brushed your teeth twice a day, and we will resume paying your dental bills.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That is hilarious. That's so smart. And it's such and it's a lot of this is resonating with me because one of my children is standing out, talking to you, the one that's getting closest to the adolescence.
Uh-huh.
I was kind of mentioning something, him and his dad they have good times and then they have really hard times. And somehow I'm able to get him to take out the garbage or do all these things. He'd go make dinner, and I'm not bribing him or saying he can have extra iPod time necessarily, but it's like, I need help, I really need help, but we have a connection. I listen to him, I talk to him, I give him my wisdom, and so I really spend that time with him that I feel like he feels that. So when you said the significant other, that just touched my heart because it's like, oh yeah, that's so important to have that nurturing time. And, one of the people that I interviewed here was Patty Whipfler, and she talks about special time.
Uh-huh.
I wondered if you think that that's a good idea for creating that bond, just having that one-on-one time, or what you think.
So yes, I'm a firm believer in what I call daddy-daughter days and
Mm-hmm.
mommy-daughter days and daddy-son days and daddy-mom-daughter and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And special time. So one of the things that works really well is, it's kind of acknowledging, hey, you know what? Saying to your 10 or 11-year-old child, you know what, let's just be honest here. Emptying the dishwasher sucks. Nobody likes to empty the dishwasher. Let's stop pretending like it's a good, American upstanding thing that everybody likes to do. People don't like to practice their musical instrument. Practicing sucks. People don't like taking the trash out. Cleaning the toilet sucks. I mean, all these things. Let's not pretend. That's one of the mistakes that parents make with music lessons, is pretending like practicing is fun. Practicing is not fun. And so basically what I have tried in the past to my kids is let's take a week. And for a week, you're going to do your chores, and you're going to do what you have to do and do your homework and all that thing, and you're going to write down the things that suck. Just make a note of the things that when you did them, like I really don't see why I should have to make my bed because I just sleep in it again the same night.
Yeah.
And then on Friday after school, you and I will go out to Starbucks and we'll have a hot chocolate and we'll go over that list.
Oh.
So I think Starbucks, people make fun of it and corporate and blah, 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 blah about Starbucks.
My kids love it.
Well, it is a gift to our society because there didn't used to be a place for kids to hang out. Mm-hmm. And there didn't used to play, the only place adults could go for a meeting was a restaurant or a bar. Mm-hmm. And so it really has become, if you go into any Starbucks, you will see someone sitting at a table tutoring a student. Mm-hmm. It's a great sort of white noise environment. So I think those kind of little special trips, and I know what you're talking about because I go through the same thing, right after I blow up about something or have a sparring match, I say, gosh, I could have said this. And moms tend to like the things the dads could have said a lot of times without being gender, discriminatory. The moms tend to say those things. And so it's the finesse, I think, that you bring, that women bring to the children that is educational for the men, which is why the men should come to the parenting classes as well as the women.
Absolutely. That's so important. Have a little visitor here.
A little one. That's okay. Welcome.
You were going to tell us about agreements and understanding.
Oh, great. So what has become very popular in modern society is we need to have an agreement. At school, if the kids get in trouble, they have to have an agreement with the principal, and everybody has to sign an agreement because rules have become unfashionable, and rules are to be broken. Well, here's the problem. A forced agreement is a euphemism for a rule. So a forced agreement is when you force someone, like we have at our high school, at the Waldorf High School, we have, you know, an agreement that the kids enter into not to do substances when they're a student at the school. And in order to be a student at the school, they have to sign that agreement, which makes it not an agreement. That's a rule. And so they see the silliness in that, and they, tongue-in-cheek, they'll either sign it and, you know, believe in it or not believe in it or fake it. And I was part of initiating that agreement, and suddenly I had an epiphany one day. I was having an argument with someone, and it was someone professionally that I had had an agreement with. And I said, do you remember our agreement? And he got really, really upset with me because I was, you know, sticking this agreement on him. And I suddenly realized, wrong word. The word is understanding. Because if you have an understanding with a child, it leaves room for them to disagree. An agreement doesn't leave any room to disagree. But then it's okay, we're going to have an understanding that you're going to do these things. That we're going to have an understanding that you're going to stay substance free, that you're never going to drive with someone in a car who's been drinking. Okay, you may think that's a stupid agreement. You may politically disagree with that, but we're going to call it an understanding. And when we have an understanding, it opens it up to give us all the freedom, because we had parents who didn't even agree with that agreement.
Right.
But when we called an understanding, it has a more generous invitation of cooperation.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would you say to somebody that says, "Oh, that's just semantics"? You know, and to me, I believe in semantics. I think that when you frame something in a certain way, it changes your mindset. I mean, you know, it's kind of like, oh, I wanted to say this for some reason. The quote from Abraham Lincoln that says, we can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or we can rejoice because thorn bushes have roses.
Right.
But just putting it in a different perspective, in a different way, really does change the feeling about it.
And I have an answer, because kids ask that question more than adults. Well, isn't that just semantics? Isn't that just the same thing? I have an exercise for the kids where I do the question about, what's the difference between fate and chance and destiny and serendipity and consequence and luck? And they say, well, they all mean the same thing. And I say, if they all made the same thing, it would only be one word. If they all meant the same thing, they'd only mean one word. So if you Wikipedia on the word understanding and you Wikipedia on the word agreement, you're going to get two very different definitions. Life is semantics, of course it is, but an understanding is not an agreement. And an agreement, it has a sense of being a rule unless we agree to agree.
Right. If we agree to it, then that makes it an understanding.
Right. Well, I think that if we have the room, you know, a perfect example is, and I'll tell you one thing about the children making noise in the middle of it. I'll tell you that now.
Go tell me. She's not there for you. She's not there for you. The littlest one can't read, so there's a sign on the door that says don't come in.
I work with 8th graders and 9th graders, and they're noisy, and they're intense, and people ask me, because I work with them from 6:30 to 8:30 9. They say, how do you tolerate them?
Yeah.
I don't know if you do this. I have a feeling you do this, but when I look at children or teenagers, I see who they're becoming. I don't see the little fussy, dirty-faced little crabbing kid. I see the essence of who that person is going to be, and that's what I love, and that's what I address rather than the lower thing. But I just wanted to say one more thing, is that just about words are everything.
Yeah.
Words are everything. And so, you know, if someone says, well, it's just semantics, I think what you're saying is very true. Communication is semantics. And if I say, for instance, it's a classic, if I say to a child who just came in, the child that just came in, and it said on, let's say she could read, and it said on the door, don't come in. Why would you come in when the sign on the door says don't come in? Is very different than why did you come in? Why would you come in when the sign's on the door, you idiot, you stupid? It's followed by all these negative things. So one of the things I say is, it's very different. That's semantics. Instead of saying why, remember when your parents would say, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why did you do that? is not an assaultive question. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Or saying something like, who do you think you are, versus, who are you?
And the difference also, listen to this
feel?
nuance. You really need to clean your room. You say to the teenager. The teenager says, no, I don't. I absolutely don't need to clean my room.
Yeah.
If you say, I need you to clean your room, the child can't say, no, you don't need me to clean my room. You absolutely do. So the minute you're telling someone what they need, you're going to lose. So semantics is everything.
And I think that is, just bringing it back to what we're talking about here is resilience. I mean, moving forward and growing up in life, being able to communicate is a huge asset to somebody as far as creating meaningful relationships, having a successful job or career. I mean, all of these things really come back to how can you communicate? How can you express yourself? So I love that. And I would love to hear a little bit more about, you have all these great things that you do, right? So there's the parenting martial arts. Mm-hmm. Is so cool. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about your comedy for parents talk that you have coming up. And there was something else. Oh, I just have to show this. I have your card here. This is the panic button. It's parentingpanicbutton.com. Rick Concoff, and I just think that is so clever. The panic button, we get, it says getting in touch with what you already know, mindful parenting tips, but getting in touch with what you already know is so clear. It's like, yes, we have that in us somehow, but pulling that out of us and figuring out ways to connect with our children, to help them, find out what they already know too. It's just, it's very in line with my philosophy that we all kind of know what we're doing. But
yeah, actually the other day someone was telling me that in reality, we learn to be parents from our parents. And if you line up the things that your parents did that you thought were correct, and you line up the things that your parents did that you thought weren't really correct, that's a great basis to come from. We can only parent because we've made mistakes and people have made mistakes. So this idea of, we can't be hypocritical. We can't, tell our kids anything. If we did it, we can't tell them not to do it. Well, that's ridiculous because then we can't train our kids. Mm-hmm. I do coaching. I do have a philosophy that basically if you don't laugh, you're going to cry.
Yeah.
Because it really is silly. It's full of parenting is full of cliches. It's full of, archetypal comments. It's like you find yourself saying the very thing that you remember your parents saying, and you said, I'm never going to say that. I find yourself standing up with your kid and looking down and saying, I know you don't understand this now, but when you're an adult, you'll understand that. Mm-hmm. And when my parents used to say, I used to hate that because it meant that there was something that I wasn't going to understand. So I do shows and conversations. I have some classes coming up and some one-on-one coaching. I did want to mention one thing, what you were saying before, right before this question, and it might be a nice way to wrap up because it's looking like the time's getting there. Mm-hmm. It's up to you when we wrap up. I could go on forever.
Yeah, I know. We have a lot to talk about.
I have a piece that I've written, and it's called Roar, Don't Rage.
Oh, yeah.
And it's based on the understanding of the lion that roars. And when a male lion leaves his pride to bring food back, there is a roar that he can do that can be heard from way far away. Mm. And so if another lion comes up, right, lion comes up and is threatening the female and the cubs, the female will roar, then this male will roar, then the little cubs were learning to roar, and that male that's coming in would go, okay, this is clear that there's some self-esteem here and there's some pride in the pride, and that I'm going to leave. That's not raging. Mm-hmm. And so our children and ourselves, we need to learn how to roar, and to roar is to stand up and say, I am who I am, and I believe in myself, and I'm strong. When you walk down the street and you're in a dangerous area and you feel threatened, you stand upright and you radiate this bigness, and you're not bothered by people. And that's called roaring. But if you start screaming at someone, screaming in their face, and the only emotion that you express is this anger, then it's going to be a problem because it never gets you anywhere. And I have one saying too that I have a gift for my students, and here's the deal. I will buy any student an ice cream sundae at Screaming Mimi's, the biggest one they can order, if they can cite for me one situation in which someone flipped someone off and got a positive result. And you think about it, why do people do that? Because you never get a positive result. So I think that part of it is the humor, the irony, and not always the humor, but the irony of how things work out and why things work out. The ability to admit that we've made a mistake, that we didn't do something as well as, communication as well as we might have wanted to. And I think when the parenting martial arts is just, that we can argue. It's okay to argue. It's okay to be upset. But that we end as significant others. We end with, oh yeah, you're my mom and you love me and you annoy the heck out of me and you make me crazy. And today I just wanted to be rid of you and I love you.
Yeah, I like that because it's like you're teaching them how to fight fair. I mean, you always hear this in relationships and marriages and stuff. When you don't fight fair, like you can't learn anything from each other and you can't really resolve problems. But when you really like do what you're saying, when you roar instead of rage, you can stand up for yourself and say, this is what I need. This is where I'm coming from in a very strong, forceful way without being a flip off,
Right, exactly. And it just, it doesn't work. And quite frankly, we wonder where our children learn these behaviors. And, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So it's our job, I think, to ourselves to model. That book, the book you talking about, Hold On to Your Kids. It's a book that you can only read 2 or 3 pages at a time. It's intense. I think every parent should read that. And I think that the themes in there are fabulous. And by the way, those guys have videos.
Okay.
Neufeld and Gabor Mate, and they're great. And if you don't have time to read the book, you can just watch the video. It's amazing.
Thank you for that resource. I really appreciate that. And for people who out there who want to read your writings and get more information about what you have to offer and your coaching, can we find you at parentingpanicbutton.com?
Right. And if you don't like long alliterative names, it's also go to my name, rickconcoff.com. Okay. You'll find the same thing. Yeah. And I'm happy. People send me emails all the time. What should I do in this situation? What should I do in that? And I will close with one question that came to me, and it was, Rick, we know that you have a very serious position about substances and substance use in kids and all that kind of thing, and modeling. Are you saying that I shouldn't drink a glass of wine in front of my kid? Mm-hmm. And my answer was a pause, and then I said, well, what do you like when you drink a glass of wine? That's the real answer. It's not to be able to be pejorative and say, you should do this, you should do that. If you know what you become, and if you become something else that changes the dynamic of the family, then the answer is obvious. And someone else can't answer that question for you. So I think,
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And that's more about like getting in touch with what you already know, being who you are and being authentic to who you are, and then using that to model an appropriate, adult-like behavior for our kids who are going to someday be adults. So, so important. And thank you for the work that you do and just giving from the heart and using humor in your, in your talks and everything. I know you touch many, many lives and help many, many kids. And it seems like you really do it selflessly, like you just care so much. So appreciate that very much.
I do, and I'd love to do another interview sometime. And we need help or advice, let me know. And the student is the teacher's teacher, so I learn from everybody that I work with and coach also.
Well, I appreciate your time today so much. And I feel like there's, you touched on so many different things, and there's a lot more to be said. So we have a lot to learn from you, and definitely I'm gonna look into all of your resources that you have out there. Gosh. I have more questions for you. But
Google my name, my appearances come up usually.
Oh, good. Okay.
Rick Concoff, parenting, that much. And I am doing a talk on January 24th at 7 o'clock at Congregation Beth Ami in Santa Rosa. So if anybody wants to come, you're welcome. There is a charge. It's a fundraiser for a teen program, but I think well worth it.
Wonderful. And if people want to get you as a speaker for their fundraiser organization, that's also available.
Absolutely. And I also I have a curriculum called Values and Virtues, which I do with teenagers in the classroom. It's role playing and, just general, practicing.
That is so cool. What a great resource for teachers and parents and, even all the music people out there. I know you have a lot in there that we didn't talk about, but thank you again. Thanks for being here and being so candid and helpful.
Can I just ask you one question? How does one subscribe to this channel?
Oh, well, everybody who's subscribed I will send, you'll have all that information. And there also is a link here at the bottom of your page where people can just click on that and find all of your information also.
So I just forward this link to people and they can come on?
Well, let me tell you about that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.